everybody. Welcome to the Beyond Sundays podcast. My name's Mason Kerby. I'm one of the pastors on the team here, and today I have with me one of the two best guys I know, Daniel and Daniel. How are you guys?
But only one of us.
Yeah.
He's got one of the Daniels that he likes, and then there's just the other one.
Yeah.
No.
But I'm well.
I love it.
Good. Thanks for asking.
I'm also well. Continue.
Great. So Daniel Beal is our North Campus students pastor. Daniel Reinhardt is our South Campus student pastor. And I can't think of two better people to join us today to talk about navigating technology in the world of our students and our parents and how we even navigate this world that is always changing. It feels like every day there is a new platform that comes out or a new form of AI that comes out or just new stuff, and it's always changing. And so as we're in the middle of this series as a church called Take Back Your Family, we want to talk about how in this ever-changing digital world, how can we claim what is good and use it for the good of our families, and how can we steer our children, steer our families away from what we don't need to be focusing on. And so what I love and what's going to be our main text for today comes from Philippians 4. It says, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. And so as we talk about this discussion today, as we talk about these things, we want to look at it from that point of view. How can we apply that same mindset and that same grid to the way that we use technology? And so, guys, what are some of the ways that you've seen your own mindset shaped in the way that you lead your families or lead your ministry, for better or for worse, by technology?
Daniel,
Yes,
I
Daniel.
cede the floor to you first.
Thank you. I think one of the most interesting things in terms of how technology shapes us is that we're inundated with so much information just at the tip of our fingers. Like I can wake up and I can have all of this information just ready to go. And yet I found that I often don't use social media or technology to learn as much as I use it to just kind of do the exact opposite of trying to forget or using it in a way to kind of withdraw, or I've had a rough day and I just need to binge this for a little bit. And I think if we're not careful, what can happen is technology meant to make things better, meant to make our lives better, meant to enable me to learn and do all of this stuff, actually does the exact opposite. And it begins to steal away from me the things that I should be doing. It steals away my passion, my joy, my drive to achieve. And I notice that in my family a lot of times when I'm not careful. If I wake up and the first thing I do is I scroll my phone and binge my phone, then I'm going to be more of a sharp tongue to my wife. And you know, I'm just, the mood that I have is going to be negatively affected because of just technology, which is literally the most insane thing in the world, that has the ability to do that to me.
Yeah.
Well, I echo what Daniel said. I think first, I want to share the ways that it has shaped family life, shaped my career in a good way. Everything from using my phone to jot down reminders and, not, break focus from a conversation. I'll find myself raising, people are talking to me, I'll go, hey, Siri, make a reminder to, and I'll do stuff like that. Setting alarms, setting reminders, calendars.
A calendar will change your life.
Birthdays. Calendars will change your life. Siri's actually listening right now because I said her name. Shush.
College students get calendars.
Oh, mercy. Get a calendar. Just get a calendar. But let's be real. People, technology was created first to make our life better. And anything I find, I think even scripturally speaking, the things that God had intended for good, the enemy manipulates for evil. So technology was developed and has pioneered for our betterment, and every step of the way, there is evil that attempts to penetrate that and utilize it to destroy. And so, how I've seen it shape my life and my family's life with calendars and with alarm clocks, getting my kids up on time in the morning, and being able to connect my children with their grandchildren.
That's not right.
Wait a minute, that can't be right. Their grandparents.
Yes.
It's been able to FaceTime or whatever. Nana and Papa, who live in Minneapolis, can have face-to-face time with their 3 grandchildren.
Sweet.
And so there are things that make that really special.
Yeah.
And then there are things in my own personal life and have a deep history with that. I was talking with someone earlier this morning about. I remember I'm actually old enough that I wasn't born in the iPhone days. And increasingly so, I find, especially the students that we minister to, is that they only know the iPhone.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I remember my first cell phone was the Nokia Blue Light, and it had Snake on it.
Come on.
The best game ever.
Boy, did I get good at it. And it wasn't even a flip phone. It was that old. And I had to... I don't think I could text on that phone. Maybe I could.
Maybe you had to pay for minutes.
You had minimum. You had a maximum amount of characters in a text.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, oop, you just exceeded your. So you got to delete and make your sentences
Tweets.
shorter. SMS text where you're like, it's like you're pressing 3 buttons to get one word.
Yeah.
Anyway, so to see what it's developed into, and the fact that we're even talking about things like artificial intelligence, the things that they made movies in our childhood about, is wild. So I've seen it work in my family specifically for wonderful things.
Yeah.
And then also, you said something that when you start your day on social media, I have found myself having conscious thoughts of, I have so much I need to get done today. Do not look at your phone.
Yep.
Or I've got, I've been putting something off, or maybe I got a project at the house. I will literally have a pep talk to myself that if I pick up my phone, I will get distracted enough and I will lose motivation enough to do what I need to do that day. And I'll literally have to talk myself out of it.
Wow.
That's the effect that it has, consciously and subconsciously.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for good and for evil, I've seen it at work, and intentional and unintentionally so.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, what we don't realize is things like that. It's a drug for our brains.
Yeah.
And it's something that the more and more we get it, the more and more we crave it.
Yeah.
And we might think that it's harmless. And the temptation is to say, well, there's so much out there that it's overwhelming, and there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah.
Scripture says in 1 Peter, it says, your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. He uses anything possible to do that. And social media, technology can be one of those things if we let it. And I think, like I said, the temptation is to be passive and to wait until something happens to address it.
Yeah.
But I think as pastors, as parents, as educators, as mentors, as leaders, as students, the call on our life is the same, that we can't afford to be passive.
Yep.
Yeah.
But we must actively fight for our families and for our hearts to be pure and to have healthy relationships with one another and with technology.
Yeah.
And so, since you guys are student pastors, I kind of want to lean into just the effect that you guys have on students and how you guys are around them all the time and how you relate with parents. And I want to talk to the parents and kind of, give a wake-up call of what is potentially happening, what we see in the lives of our students. And so, Reinhardt, you have kids. Beal, you don't have kids yet. But as you guys have been around teenagers or have been around children, what have been some things that have kind of surprised you of, oh my gosh, this is actually happening at a young age?
Yeah. Well, if I may, for starters, the words my children came home with from the 2nd and 3rd grade, second and fourth grade, and a couple of years ago was first and third, I guess. I'll never forget it. Our kids were in public school for a year. We were in Arizona, and Jonathan came home and said, "What's this word?" And I looked at him, and I looked at Brittany, and I was like, okay. Some of the best piece of advice, we were talking about this morning, that I ever heard was, so parents, hear me. I'm going to look over my glasses right at the camera. Hey, parents, hear me. If you give up the authority you have in your child's life to be the expert in these things, they will find an expert somewhere else. Putting my glasses back on. If you abdicate the responsibility to be your child's safe place about the new words and the new concepts and the pictures they may or may not have seen on a friend's phone. See, we don't believe in phones yet for our kids, but plenty of my 10-year-old son's friends have phones.
Yeah.
And he talks about, oh yeah, my friend showed me this YouTube video on the bus. And YouTube has all kinds of back doors to problem areas.
Yeah.
You're right. Things that can be, deemed as educational, right? Can pass on YouTube and other streaming platforms. And so I would say parents, I have young kids, but I'm seeing this is a common theme, is that we need to be the expert in our child's eyes.
Yeah.
That when they come home with that new concept, we take the time it takes to have that conversation with our children, so that when they hear something new, they come to you. Okay, they come to us first.
That's big.
And go, hey, I heard something else that I didn't understand today. What is that?
Yeah.
Not, I heard something else that sounded dirty, and I better not tell my mom and dad because they freaked out at me last time I said this.
Yeah.
And I would say that the age of awareness is young.
Yeah.
If you think you have time, they're not old enough for that. My son is 10, and he's probably been submersed in this conversation at least 3 years that I am aware of.
Yeah.
Which would have made him 7. If your kids are 8 years and older and y'all haven't had this conversation, this might be a hot take. It's like you could be missing your window by then. I'd love to think that we could wait till they're 14.
I wish.
Yeah.
But I was deep in my addiction years before 14.
Yeah.
So that has been my personal experience in this arena, is that be your child's expert in all of these things, which means, you said it, it's not enough to think, I'll address it when it comes up. You need to be actively researching what is available, how they get it, how you can protect them from it.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a couple thoughts I have.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I see is, and when I say this, I don't mean it in a negative or rude way, but just the naivety of certain of parents in general, of just not fully understanding and grasping the scope of what the iPhone, what the iPad, what the Xbox can do. And it's not that parents are, just saying, I want to throw my kids to the wolves and hope they survive, as much as it is, a lot of times they just don't know what students can do and how they can find ways around certain things and just pretty much they've got people to teach them how to do it. You know what I mean? And so you said it earlier, Mason, but you brought up the word passivity. And I think it goes back to, the first sin in the garden was the passivity of Adam in, addressing the sin of Eve. You know what I mean? Where he just let her do that. And so as parents, as leaders, as people who are wanting students to thrive and to to grow in the Lord, the thing we can't do is be passive. Is it's got to be an offensive thing where we are knowing what's out there, but also at the same time knowing how to defend against it, and not even defend against it, but actively preventing it and making a stand, saying, "Hey, in my house." Kind of like Joshua, as for me and my household, we will not submit to technology. We won't let it rule us.
Yeah.
It won't be the thing that has dominion over us, because that's the very thing that happened in the garden was Adam and Eve were supposed to have dominion and rule the garden well. And what happened is they allowed the creation to rule them. And so a lot of times in our lives, especially with technology, what we do is we created it, and yet we give it the ability and the authority to rule us and to govern us and to steer us where we want to go. And so parents, I just want to charge you and encourage you and say, hey, don't be naive in the sense that students, kids, teens, whatever, they know more about technology probably than you do.
Yep.
And that's okay. But it's not okay to keep it that way. You need to learn technology and you need to study it, so that way you know the best way to combat all the evil that can come through technology. But also at the same time, so that you can use technology in the best way to elevate your family's love for the Lord and their desire for Jesus. Because technology can do that as well. You know what I mean? We can use technology for good, but we just have to know that we need to take dominion over it. And it starts with us, and it starts with parents knowing, hey, my kids probably know more about this than I think they do.
Yeah. I think of this conversation right now. It's a podcast being delivered through technology.
Yeah.
The heart behind it is, we want parents to hear a conversation maybe that they'd love to have in the busyness of their lives.
Yeah.
Otherwise, back in the day, this would have been a seminar of some kind.
Yeah.
And we'd be paid for it. But anyway, I digress. So, I think like this is a perfect example. When I go on walks in the morning now, 2-mile walk from my front door, my little route, and I have ingested more leadership and worship podcasts in the last 2.5 weeks than I probably have, and I don't want to say how long, simply because there's space. So there's space created in my schedule, and now I have the focus to be able to input that information. And that's all delivered through technology.
Yeah.
And that has been an incredible blessing to me to be able to do that as a parent who I want to use my focus time on my family.
Yeah.
The sweetest, best parts of my day I want to reserve for my family. Yeah. And technology in that little way gives me the ability to do that. And so it's a wonderful tool.
Yeah.
To reiterate our point, I suppose.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, before we move on from that, Daniel, you were even talking about just what was the word used?
Naivete.
Naivete.
That was such a profound word. But how parents can be naive. And I was doing some research earlier today of just trends, things that are happening in our current world today in America, in the lives of middle schoolers and junior high students and teenagers that parents may not know about. And I don't think it's a secret that it wasn't that long ago that I was in high school. I know, shocking. And as I was doing this research and seeing these things, I was like, yeah, like these things are happening because I saw it with my eyes.
Yeah.
And so I do want to talk about a couple, and just to put in perspective the gift that technology can be, but also how harmful it could be if we just let it happen under our nose without being active. And so I found a study that showed that 35% of high schoolers according to the study, have either sent or received explicit images or videos through messaging apps.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was more.
I totally agree.
Yeah. When was the poll conducted?
I think it was a few years ago, but it was just a small poll, and that's only the people who are admitting
Honest.
it.
Admitting
and
to it.
honest.
I was going to say that's and honestly, that is. It's not shocking to me anymore. But I remember me in high school. You had to have had such a bad streak in your life to have the courage to do that. Okay, like you were a bad kid if you were caught with or doing something like that. And that was, for me, 16 years ago, something like that. 16. Anyway.
But it's the normal now.
Now, that's the thing, is that it's like, well, I mean, everybody's done it once. It was the P word. I don't know if we're allowed to say porn on a podcast, but anyway, but that was the everybody's probably seen it now. You know,
Right.
Everybody's seen it, right? And now it's everybody's sent a picture of themselves.
Yeah.
And when I was in high school, I'm like, no, that was not the case. Sure, some people did. Those are the bad kids.
Yeah.
In my childhood, it was everybody struggles with that.
Yeah.
And then, like, at some point, it's going to be, everybody's killed someone. I mean, at least one person. It's like, well, hang on. What a jump. But you get what I'm saying. It's just, this is scope creep.
Yeah.
It's, you don't realize, you get 1 inch off of the line in the direction that you're headed, and then all of a sudden, 10 years down the road, you're 10 miles from where you wanted to be.
Right.
And so, anyway.
And I even think, too, that has to, the fact that it's more prevalent now has to do with the fact that technology is so much better. Like there's apps like Snapchat where you can send something and it literally will delete. Even though it stays on Snapchat servers forever.
Yeah.
They don't tell you that part.
No.
But it deletes and there's no trace
Parents,
of it.
did you hear that? That it stays in a server forever.
Yeah.
What's it called? What's the trend? Like, you want to keep it going. I want to keep my snap streak. And like, I've had conversations with students like, hey, I can't. When we say for camp, hey guys, no phones at camp. They're like,
I have to keep my streak alive.
I got to keep my snap streak alive. And it's like,
yeah,
for real?
I could not recommend enough to parents of junior high students, middle school students, high schoolers even. I mean, you parent how you want to parent, but as somebody who just came out of that season not long ago, I can't recommend enough how to get rid of Snapchat.
Yep.
Yeah.
To get rid of things that don't hold you accountable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because there's no accountability in something that disappears.
Yeah.
And so that's...
And it doesn't, there's no guarantee, right? It may disappear from your ability to track it, but we all know the whole screenshot.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's what they do. Snapchat is you just take a screenshot of it before it disappears, and now it's in someone else's, photo roll. I was thinking of like where this was going to come up, and I want to be careful how I say this part because I'm a young parent, okay? I grew up in a home with parents that love the Lord, and they led us in wonderful ways. And my sisters and I pulled the wool over their eyes in many other ways. Something that I heard a lot growing up, and I'm curious if y'all heard this or were even told this, is, I want my kids to go to public school because I want them to be salt and light in the world. Did y'all ever have that conversation, or do you know people that have had that conversation?
I've heard that before.
Yeah.
Yeah. I never had it, but there's a lot of people.
You're aware of it. It's like,
around.
no, they're going to go to public school. I want them to be a light in their schools. And I'm not digging on public schools. I got 2 kids in public school right now. However, this is where I believe that abdication of responsibility happens. So I want my kids to be salt and light in their school. The problem with that is that if you're not doing the work to train your children in the way they should go, you're sending your sheep to the wolf den. Your pure, innocent children are being sent to be devoured. And we think it's, I'm sending them to be light. And if you've not trained them to do that, then they're not ready to do that. Even and Sunday school and the real faithful ones, Sunday and Wednesday, is not even close to enough to building stability in their relationship with Jesus. We always say our job is to partner with parents, not parent for them. That's in student ministry. That has to be. And time and time again, it's like I want my son, I want my daughter to come on Wednesdays because they just really need that influence. And I want to be like, I promise you, they're not going to get the influence you think they're getting here. What are you doing at home? And I'm a young parent, so I get that this probably sounds maybe even judgmental, but I'm watching what's happening around me going, I'm not okay with sending my children into the wolf den unprepared. And this is the hot topic is I'm not going to, especially with older kids, I'm not going to make my kids go to church. I want them to choose it. I'm going to make my kids go to church. As long as it is possible for me to do so, my kids are going to be in the house of the Lord, even if they don't like it, because they are not able to make that informed decision yet accurately. I have been bored to tears in church, and I have experienced some of the most incredible life change in church. And my parents made me go to all of it. And I have that conversation often. And you'll understand when you have older kids. You can't make them because they're going to, and it's like, you can though. And it's a hot take. You can, and I think that you should. I think that you should make that decision for your kids as long as it is available for you to make that decision for them. So,
hot take. You heard it here first, folks.
You just wrap this up right now. Like, all right, we're going to have to cancel this podcast. Sorry, I said it.
Well, thanks for sharing. Well, as we continue to talk about, navigating technology and those things that students are dealing with or our children are dealing with without even us knowing, and you talked about training our students to be the salt and to not hide those things. Because I think the biggest problem is because of the shame that is associated with it, that when a student falls into a temptation or falls into addiction or something like that, the first instinct is to hide it. And so I've seen so many students, me included, who was going through something like that and thought, oh my gosh, the last person I'm going to tell is my parents. Because there's so much shame and guilt tied to it. And so how do we, whether we're mentors or leaders or parents, how do we form this open conversation with students or with children to prevent that from happening?
So I think it goes back. So in Scripture, it talks about raising your kids in the fear and the admonition of the Lord. And so what that means is this idea that we raise our kids, we lead our kids, we as youth pastors, as people who serve in the church, as whatever it is, our job is to inundate students with what it means to be a believer in Jesus and what that looks like. There's a pastor here in Abilene named Blake White, and he says something that stuck with me. It's everyone is indoctrinated, so parents choose the doctrine well. And so I think it starts at a young age of you being an open book, of you being someone who confesses to your wife, to your kids, to your husband, whatever it is. Hey, I've sinned, and this is how I sinned, and do you forgive me? If you're harsh with your kids, or if you're harsh with your spouse, hey, I've sinned. Do you forgive me? And then if it's with your spouse, letting your kids see that and walking your kids through, hey, when I talked to your mom this way, that was wrong. That was not from the Lord. That was a sin against God and your mom. And so I went to her and I needed her to forgive me because I, was a fool and I talk to her poorly, or basically being an open book for our kids, the people who we lead, to see us fail, but also at the same time to know, hey, that there is therefore now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. To fail, and when we do fall short and we do sin, for them to see us confess our sin not only to God, but to them, to our wife, or to our husband, or whatever it is, and then to also show what forgiveness looks like, and then on the other side, what reconciliation looks like. So if something happens and someone sins against me, what forgiveness looks like and what reconciliation looks like, and then pointing them back, hey, the reason we do this is because I was first forgiven. And so that starts from a super young age of, before they even can talk, I think. Kids and babies pick up on far more than we think they do.
Yeah.
We talk about that often, Daniel, in the youth world.
Yeah.
Is kids pick up on far more than we think they do. Students pick up on far more than we think that they're capable of. And so giving them credit for, they're smart. You know what I mean?
Yeah. When I can tell my kids are listening is when they turn into mouth breathers. You know what I'm talking about? My wife and I will be talking about something maybe in a hushed tone, and then all of a sudden I'll kind of look over and I'll see my oldest just mouth agape, listen to every word, and I'm thinking like he doesn't get the context. He heard something. He heard a trigger word that thought, I'm gonna stop doing what I'm doing and see what mom and dad are talking about.
And we've done it too.
And I have done it too. I have been walking down the hallway of this church, and I hear something, and I go. No, I'm just kidding. But it's that easy. So yeah, your kids, our kids are paying attention, even when we think they're not. And I happen to have a son who looks like he's rarely paying attention ever. But then when you get him in a moment, he'll say something, and I'll go, "Well, where'd you hear that?" And he'll go, "Well, you said it to mom, 3 weeks ago." And I'm like, yes, I did. So it's like, I didn't know you were, while you were, screaming and beating your chest on the trampoline, I didn't think that you picked up on that.
Yeah.
And so let that be a lesson to, all of our parents and parents to be. It's like, hey, they're going to pay attention.
Yeah.
And there's no telling what their intrigue is based off of.
Right.
And so I think you said it, Daniel. It's like, I want my kids to see me make it right with their mother. Not kids, will be right back. We need to go talk. And then we come out and we're good. It's never, because here's the thing, apologies never go that great, where it's like, hey, I'm mad at you and I'm mad at you. And okay, but I know I got to apologize. It's like, they need to kind of see that,
Yeah.
They need to see a father go like, okay, to be honest, I literally can't even remember what we were arguing about. And then that's really going to make mama mad. But like, kids need to see that, like, that's why we pay attention.
Yeah.
That's why we don't listen to simply respond. That's why we don't do this. It's like when a dad says, hey, I said that thing to get your attention. And it's not true. And I am sorry that I did that to you and contributed to that pain that you're feeling right now. Can you forgive me for that? I don't want to have to admit that I said something that wasn't true just to get someone to be quiet. But you better believe I've done it. And so to have my kids go like, oh, wow, even dad does that. But what does dad also do? And then dad does it less. I think that's got to be the fruit in our life.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway,
there's a family that goes to church here, and the way that they parent, they've told me that they have a big, it's like just a rule and a staple in their house of like, hey, if you mess up and you make a mistake, whether that has to do with technology or not, if you mess up and you do something that you're not supposed to do, but you come to us and you tell us that you did that, like there's not going to be any punishment. There's not going to be any condemnation. Like, we just want to be there for you and help you through that and show you what your next steps are. And I think that's important because it just shows the open communication of how, like, a relationship with your kids or with your parents should always come before the shame and the guilt that could possibly come if I don't.
Yeah.
And so as we talk about now, like, how do we have those conversations with children or with teens about technology, about purity? Like, how can we go about that? Like, what's the difference between talking to a child, between talking to a teen about those things? And what are some resources that are available to us as we do that?
Sure. Well, I think it's important to remember too, there often are natural consequences,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know? And I think what you said is correct. I have been guilty myself of what rises up in me typically as a dad is the fear of what could have happened. And so you respond with intensity, which is a conduit for shame. Yeah, that intensity can quickly turn into anger, which turns into shaming. Because what's going on in my mind is, do you realize what could have happened if a car was, and you ran out in the, how could you think that would, and all of a sudden it's shame language. And what peace you have to walk in to be able to slow down and go, that could have been really bad. Are you okay? You know, hey, that could be a lot worse. Or, hey, this consequence, this natural consequence that you and I don't have control over, you're going to feel it. How's your heart? You know, I've got young kids, and so I can probably speak to that, but also we pastor older kids. And it's been, I mean, what a journey that's been to be able to have the gambit of that before I have teenagers, talking with teenagers and trying to reason with them. Like, you see how that's wrong, right? And they're like, well, I just feel like it actually isn't. And I just kind of want to be like, well, you can feel that, but that's wrong. So that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. That was wrong. When I'm talking to my kids, first of all, understanding not all your kids are going to receive it the same. So you can't parent the same. And this is not new development. This is simply my perspective of what I've learned from what other people have written, right? Is that when I talk to my kids, when I talk to my oldest son, is different than how I talk to my middle son, and that is different from how I talk to my youngest daughter. But a general rule of thumb, when I talk to young kids who have made a mistake, at certain ages, there's things going on. And at that, let's say it's like a 5 to 10 window, especially even younger, subconsciously kids are asking themselves, am I safe? Right? Babies do it. They just can't verbalize it. They cry. They giggle, right? Am I safe right now? 5 to 10 years old, they may be able to verbalize it better. They still may revert to behavior. I remember when I was little, it's like if I don't feel safe, respect goes out the window. It doesn't matter what adult is speaking to me. If I feel threatened or if I have fear rise up in me or I feel unsafe, then it's like, it doesn't, like how I'm talking to you doesn't matter to me right now. I need to be safe. I need to get somewhere where I'm safe. And then you see, it was with, I gotta be careful here. My mother's mother, Grandma Dawn, she's with Jesus, and I bet you she is a pleasant woman now. I didn't always feel safe with Grandma Dawn because she liked to do it the old way, just take off a shoe and start whooping. And I remember in those moments, what I couldn't have verbalized then was I don't feel safe. It was I don't like Grandma, but it's like actually what I was feeling was I don't feel safe to be me. And then you see mom and dad come back from date night and you run into their arms, even though you know you're going to be in a world of trouble because grandma's got a report. It's like, but I felt safe and I was ready to deal with the consequences. It's like, guys, don't make me go to Grandma Dawn's house again. She threw a shoe at me. That never actually happened. I just want to be clear. I feel like she thought about it though. And so when you talk to young kids, are they safe when they're navigating their mistakes? Because if they are, they're going to share. They're going to share with you. If they don't feel safe in your home, they will find somewhere that they do feel safe. And typically, it's their peers. And then you have what we see today is a generation of people that were led by their peers and not by the wisdom of the generations before them. And so now, basically, what you feel is your reality. And so when you're talking to young kids, it is imperative that you are a safe place. Your kids or others. That's one perspective I have.
Yeah. I think, too, this coming from someone who has no children.
Nice.
But had great parents. Still do.
Yeah.
That sometimes one of the safest things you can do is discipline well.
Yep.
Even in the book of Hebrews, it talks about that God disciplines us as legitimate children, and if He did not discipline us, then we would be illegitimate. And that's a crazy thing. Basically this idea that God disciplines those whom He loves, and it's different from destruction.
Yeah.
And again, it talks about it in Ephesians of, hey, don't provoke your children to anger. And so how can I discipline in a way that doesn't provoke my children to anger? Well, it's by me explaining, hey, the reason that there's a consequence for the thing going on right now, for the actions you had, for the thing that you did, was because it not only went against my directive for you, but it violated God's command. And that there are legitimate consequences physically. Mm-hmm. There's legitimate consequences, whether it be some form of parental discipline, but at the same time that there are consequences for wrong action, and yet you'd rather experience the consequence that comes from me as a parent than the consequence that comes from the world.
Yeah.
Because that's far worse.
Yeah.
Amen.
You know what I mean? And that's one of the things, again, not that I have kids, but that's one of the things that my father and my mother instilled well, was that, hey, I might get in trouble for this.
Yeah.
Because I did totally lie in every way to everyone I know. And yet, when I get home, I know that there's going to be a consequence.
Yep.
And yet, it's better that I experience it in a home with good parents than if I'm left to my own devices to just go into the world and live that. Because ultimately, I'm going to get crushed in the world by not being submitted to that.
Yep.
So I'd say what as we navigate that and we understand that, talking to a child about technology and or just the scary things that are out there in the world is going to be different than talking to a teenager, or even peer to peer and talking as adults, figuring out, because the challenge doesn't end when you graduate high school. It doesn't end when you're done with college, or when you get married, or when you have kids. It's still an ongoing battle. How can we, as adults, as parents, as leaders, as students even, how can we set boundaries and count the cost of cutting off technology or using it for good, or making sure that it's not something that takes over our family?
Yeah. Well, low-hanging fruit would be that there are a ton of resources safeguards for technology on your phones and tablets. And because I think too, what people are interested in is, how do I do this without having the radical, decision or having to make the radical decision of, we're not going to have a single screen in our home ever again. And we'll have one cell phone that we share as a family. Really what people are looking for is, how do I, because what it sounds like is yep, your kids are toast, to use the word from their generation. They're cooked. It's like, sorry about you. Your kids are cooked. Don't know what to tell you. So what they're looking for is, what kind of information can you give me short of taking everything away? There are resources. There's one app in particular I've just done some research on called Bark, and it was developed by a chief of police, and of course with the app developers. And while it is not a prevention software, and there are many, you got Covenant Eyes, you got a bunch of different things like that. It's not a prevention software, it's a monitoring software. And so there has to be a discussion with your child about, hey, just want you to know, everything you see, I will see. But it recognizes keywords and texts, and there was an interview that he did. Again, the app's called Bark, like B-A-R-K, like a dog barking. I think it's a little icon of a dog, like, your kid's in trouble. He's into something. But basically, I'm sure that's where it came from. But you hear his wife ask him, like, what's the thing you need to be prepared for the most? And he's talking about his 12-year-old. And he goes, get ready. Get ready, because you're going to see some things you wouldn't believe they were struggling with. Or you wouldn't believe they were into. And so there's resources like that. The other thing is, as a follower of Christ, which I'm not sure if this guy is, I didn't get that deep into it, I firmly believe that there are things, to truly be free, you may need to forfeit your right to. There are things that I will never have on my phone again. And I'm a free indeed. Who the Son sets free is free indeed. But there are things that I do not have access to in all of my technology outlets, because not only could I not be trusted with them then, I don't want to be tempted by them now. And plenty of times,
agree more.
Plenty of times I go, oh man, I really wish I could look this up right now. Geez, I got to ask somebody, and they're going, why don't you have that on your phone? And I just want to be like, they're going to spell it out for you. But I think that as a follower of Jesus, and to be free, you need to have the courage to forfeit your right to things.
It requires sacrifice.
Yep.
And there'll be things that people can do, and I'll say this too, it's like there'll be things that people have access to that I don't, that are really cool things, really good things in a disciplined person's hands. And while I'm navigating the discipline of my own life in many areas, I go, I can't be trusted with that right now. And I'm not going to put that plate of food in front of me and try not to eat it. And that's an analogy broad enough that people understand what I'm saying. It's like, when you're hungry, you're going to eat.
Yep.
And when you make the worst decisions, or when you're hungry, you're angry, you're lonely, or you're tired. Those are the four big ones where you find yourself making the worst decisions of your life. And think about the people in your life right now. It's like, I'm tired of being alone. Well, there's somebody that's lonely often.
Yep.
Somebody's on a diet. I'm hungry all the time. There's somebody that's dealing with that. I just feel angry. I've been angry since I was 10 years old. All right, well, there's someone who's capable of a bad decision. I've been running myself ragged. I just feel exhausted. It's like, I know... we got people on, you got people that we work with here. It's like, that's what you hear. And any one of those things are a breeding ground for us to make poor decisions. Yeah. And so it's like, be willing to forfeit your right to certain things for the sake of developing your relationship with the Lord.
Yeah.
So.
There's another resource called Gab. It's a Gab phone. It's similar to smartphones, and they do watches, different stuff like that, except similar to, this is going to be a deep cut reference. Do y'all remember the Firefly phone?
Whoa,
you could call mom, dad, and 911.
911, yep.
Similar to that, except, it's got maps for navigation and different things like that. But you are able to monitor the phone. And so that's a really cool resource.
Yep. Show them. These are some of my favorite books here.
But for having conversations with students, with kids, you don't want to just come out and just open the gambit to your 3-year-old son about everything in the world and how things go and what things are. But you do want to have wise and good conversations with kids as young as possible in an appropriate way. And so one thing that you can do to help even navigate the use of technology, what they can see on technology, is there's books like this, Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. This is the junior version. So this one is for like 2 to 3, 4.
Yep.
Here's Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. It's
Senior.
For kids that are older, right? And ultimately, the subtitle is Porn Proofing Today's Young Kids.
Yeah.
Because, the reality is students as young as 5th grade, most likely way younger, are seeing things that they shouldn't, whether it be on purpose or on accident.
Yeah, a lot of times it's not even their fault.
Right.
But because intentional conversations weren't had in time, that it's creating destruction.
Right.
Yeah.
And so these are a good way to have early intentional conversations where it's like, hey, what are good pictures?
Yeah.
What are bad pictures? If you see this, don't be afraid to come tell me that you saw a bad picture, where you saw it, because, hey, I want to protect you, and these are bad for you.
Yeah.
And so if you saw it at so-and-so's house from their older sibling, then tell me, and we can walk through how to protect you from that.
And that first interaction is really key.
Yeah.
And that's what, the grace of God has to be sufficient for us in these moments. You think like, oh, did I blow it with my kid when he told me he saw that for the first time? What do you mean you saw that? I was just even reading right here, the first couple pages. It says, why we love to look at pictures. I mean, I think of my 3-year-old daughter who loves to look at pictures in Brittany's camera roll of herself and her brothers and the family and something silly. And it's like, it's stimulating. Some pictures are good. And then there are some pictures that are not good. They're bad for you. They are intended to harm you. And so it's just a great way to open that door with your kids.
Yeah.
At a young age, specifically.
And then this one is The Talk, 7 Lessons to Introduce Your Child to Biblical Sexuality. And so it's not like, the birds and the bees, which has never really made sense because two different species.
I didn't know birds and bees got down like that.
But it's just
it was confusing to me my entire life.
Right. But it's a good book that uses the biological terms of what things are, but in an age-appropriate way to talk through it. Because, so I'll use this analogy. My dad and I, big into hunting. And one thing my dad always did from a young age was put me around firearms and taught me how to use them and use them safely, the appropriate times for them and the non-appropriate times for them. Because the less curiosity there is about something, the less likely you are to use it wrongly. And that's what he did with that. And so the thing we fear is to have our kids know about it at all. And it's like, no, let's have them know about it in a good way so that there's not an inappropriate curiosity that they'll find a way to find out later. Again, be the expert in your home on everything.
Yeah. Yep. And I mean, you said it there. It's like in that particular resource, it uses the biologically accurate terms. It's like, listen, if we're calling it, clean your hoo-ha, and they go into life with that, it's like even that is a misrepresentation of what it was created for.
Right. Because
now we've accidentally dubbed it as something that is either silly, maybe even meaningless, right? And the liability is that it will be treated as such. And it's like every time you say it, you giggle. Listen, the only thing I'm not going to finish that sentence. There are things that just make me giggle, right? Anytime somebody breaks wind, they're probably going to have to edit this part out. But it's like when it comes to talking about, and this has been hard for Brittany and I, to have the conversation with our kids, because we'll say the words and their little cheeks get red and they smile and they get just like, oh, that's a buzzword, right? That sounds funny. It's like, yeah. I don't know why the English language decided to call our body parts what they decided to call them. But some of those words make you giggle a little bit. But if you can have that open, real conversation with your kids and eliminate the curiosity, when they hear it again, they're not going to go, "What'd you say? Wait, what are you talking about?" Can you picture that happening with kids? Oh, I just heard a buzzword that makes, we don't talk about a lot at home. But what did he say about his butt? What? And then all of a sudden they're drawn into, right? Just the curiosity is there. But now when I hear somebody say "but," I don't think of that.
Yeah.
And I'm so old, I'm like, "But what?" I'm confused. So it's like the curiosity isn't there, so the need to investigate isn't there.
Right.
I think an encouragement to parents, even in that too, is that I think there's a lot of you're talking about like the birds and the bees talk. There's a lot of pressure to have the talk with your kid. And really, I don't think it's one big talk,
Nope.
but it's 1,000 little ones.
Yeah.
And just keeping that conversation going, that it's something that's normal, so that it's not hidden from them. They're not sheltered from it. They're protected, absolutely, but they're educated on the things that matter. And
we just had a little. It was a leadership concept, and you just said it. It's like, as a leader, having a hard conversation is better to have 100 1-minute conversations than it is to have one 100-minute conversation, especially with a young child who's not going to be interested in anything. I mean, 6 minutes in, right? You got 1 minute for every year they are. It's like with my 10-year-old, I may have 10 minutes. After that, he gone. So having the constant, you said it, a repetition of like, "Hey, remember what we talked about?" Or, "Hey, let's talk about this again." Or, "Hey."
Yeah.
It's good.
Well, before we end, I'd like us three, and Daniel, you can start, and we'll just go down to, if you could give one piece of advice when navigating technology, navigating this, purity concept with wisdom and purpose, and whether that's to parents, whether that's to students, if you could just give one piece of advice, something that you would encourage them in, what would it be?
One thing I navigated my whole life. This is the first thing that popped in my mind. And this happens to be a camp plug, is that culture has to bow to truth. Your kids are not behind just because culture says they are. Your kid is not behind because they don't have a phone yet. And your kid's eternity hanging in the balance is not worth them having a phone when their friends have a phone. Endure the hard conversations with your kids at home about bullying and not having a phone, as opposed to navigating 25 years of therapy and addiction treatment because there was no conversation when they were young. And it that may seem extreme, but 15 years of my addiction happened before I realized it.
Wow.
Right? And there has been some unwinding of neural pathways in my life that have been incredibly painful and spilled over into other areas of my life. How I eat, how I exercise or don't. All of those things I've had to retrain because of this one thing. And so, parents, you are not behind, and your kids are not behind just because culture says they should have a phone now. They should be trusted with a phone now. It's not worth it. My son's destiny is not worth that. But it will be worth the conversation of kids bullying him. I don't want my son to be bullied. He may be bullied because he won't have the things that his peers have. And I need to have the courage to have that conversation with him.
Yeah. It's good.
Yeah. I love what Psalm 127 has to say. It says this in verse 3, "Behold, children are a heritage from the Lord, the fruit of the womb a reward. Like arrows in the hands of a warrior are the children of one's youth. Blessed is the man who fills his quiver with them. He shall not be put to shame when he speaks with his enemies in the gate." And What the thing I love about that is, one, it shows the value and the worth that kids are to a family. They are a heritage from the Lord. That's a good thing. But also what it does is it uses some imagery that's pretty interesting. It uses the imagery of a archer, a warrior who is standing at the gates with weapons ready for war. And what are the weapons? It's his children. And so the cool thing is you don't go into war with weapons that are ill equipped to wage war.
Yeah.
You also don't give your weapons away and let the enemy use them against you. Yeah. And so as a parent, use your children as weapons to bring Christ to the world. Yeah. And so that starts at, the age of 0 till whenever they leave the home. Like, they are your responsibility to sharpen, to hammer out, to make as strong as possible in the Lord.
Yeah.
And it starts with the smallest of conversations when they're young, and that it goes into the deepest of conversations even when they're older. But it all comes back to raising them up in the fear and the admonition of the Lord. And so if that's something that has been an issue or has been a struggle, don't hear this as, hey, it's too late.
Yeah.
Don't hear this as, I can't believe you've failed. But hear it as, hey, there's a war and we're called to fight in it. And so, hey, you maybe haven't prepared earlier, but there's no better time than now.
Yeah.
So
it's good.
The last thought, I know that, and I just want to, this thought came to me as you were saying that. It's like I was feeling that conviction of, Bluey and Daniel Tiger are not suitable replacements for parents. And my kids I love Bluey. Bluey makes me cry. We've talked about this. Like, that show hits deep. However, what confusing message does it send when we're overwhelmed, we're overworked, we're overstimulated, and we let Bluey be the parent of our child for 2 hours so that we can decompress? There's been no interaction with them, and then we expect them to give up the thing that has been nurturing them when we weren't. It's like, TV has been I've been guilty of TV being my child's pacifier when I was unavailable. And then as they get older, I'm thinking, why are you so addicted to your screens? And because they were always there for me.
Yeah. I was taught.
or why don't you want to talk to me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why don't you want to talk to me? Well, because you didn't want to talk to me. And so, that hits on a personal level.
Yeah.
So
it's good. The last thing I would encourage you, especially the students that are watching, is, now's the time to make decisions to better set up your future.
Yep.
And if you're in high school or junior high right now, and I'm one of the people who I struggle to think long term, big picture sometimes. But I can tell you that the decisions that you're making now, the boundaries that you set for yourself now, are gonna better set up your future marriage, your future family, the way that you parent, the way that you're an employee at a job. And like asking yourself the questions like, I know all of my friends have Snapchat, but do I really need it?
Yep.
Like, is it actually bettering my life? Yep. Or setting screen time limits on your phone, even if nobody else is making you do that. Like, if your parents aren't setting screen time limits on your phone, maybe ask the question, should I do this myself? Should I be active in this fight before letting it consume my world? And so, man, we could talk about this for another hour, but I'm just thankful that, we got to talk about this, and hopefully we were a blessing to you guys. And something that I want to talk about just as an extra resource, that if you don't know, and if you've made it this long on the podcast, we have a gathering every Wednesday night here at the church called Beltway Students. And if you have a middle schooler, a junior high student, a high schooler who is looking for a community to be submersed into, and looking for somewhere to go where we talk about this stuff, where we talk about real issues, where we talk about how to navigate the culture that we live in, man, that is such a great place for them to go to. And Daniel do a great job of leading that. I have a privilege of just being a leader who just gets to come and serve and lead a freshman boys life group, and it's something incredible. And so if you're looking for a resource, man, let the church be a resource. But just like Daniel said at the beginning, man, our job is to partner with parents. And so the fight starts with you, and the fight starts in the home. And we want to do everything we can to take back our families and live in the goodness of God, the goodness that he has for us. And so thank you guys for watching the Beyond Sundays podcast. Thank you, Daniel and Daniel, for joining. And remember that God is moving in your lives beyond Sundays. So make sure you check out on our social media, on our Instagram and Facebook, when the next episodes are going to be. And we'll see you next time.